Hello, my beautiful African people. Welcome back to Hell and Ride Africa YouTube channel. Today we are looking at the two things Africa must do if they want to progress in this century. Because time is running out for Africa. Because we can't continue moving sluggish, in this way. Because what's happening in Africa is that we don't have. Most of our politicians doesn't have like somebody, a country they look up to, because most of the countries in Africa are struggling. So when they look at their neighbor, compare themselves with their neighbor, they might think that they're progressing. They're not comparing themselves with the Asians or the Western people, the Western countries. So let's circle back to the two things the Africa must do to progress. Number one is that Africa countries, because we know that most of the African countries doesn't have a steady electrical power supply, and for you to have access to information, or even for you to venture into innovation, you have to have a power supply, and the steady one, because I don't know what the politicians in Africa are doing. This should be the priority of all their policy in Africa, that they should ensure that Africa have a steady power supply. And in this day and age, we know that Africa have even they have all the stuff it takes to have this power supply. We're not talking about even nuclear power. We have we have solar technology now, and we have always sunshine. Africa is always having sunshine, and we have wind as well, wind technology that it can use to make sure that boost the African electrical power supply. But unfortunately, we see that some countries doesn't give a damn in Africa about power supply. Some countries do load shedding, and it seems that this load shedding will never end in most African countries. And I don't know why they don't look to the West to see that in all the Western countries, whether poor, and even if they are poor in the West, if you go there, you are guaranteed of a 24-hour supply of power. But when you go to Africa, most of the African countries, you're not guaranteed this. You always have power interruption. And what can you do with this kind of, not having a steady power? Can't achieve much, you know what I mean? Even the technology, you have to, if you want to have your own power supply, steady power supply, is very expensive in Africa. But it's achievable, you know what I mean? But we're not talking about people that can afford to, get this on their own, have their own power bank, you know what I mean, on electricity. We're talking about 70% of the population of Africa that's not rich enough to have the individual, be able to cater for their own power supply. Without power supply, nothing. You can't do. What are you gonna do? Like if you want to build a 20-story building in Africa, you're gonna use lifts to go to the top level, and you can use lift. You can be using a generator to use lift. Somebody's gonna the lift is gonna is gonna hang. Gonna stop in the middle of you going up to the top level, and somebody might stay there for 5 hours. 5 hours waiting for power. So there's nothing you can do much. You can't do anything without this power supply. But it's like we are talking to a brick wall when you are talking to these African politicians. Get you mad and livid that this is supposed to be their priority. Get this sorted. They don't do that. And let's go to the second stop of Africa. These two things, if Africa do it within 10 years, Africa will be a different place. And this second one is very important, just like the first one. And the second one is that the African politicians, they must pass laws in Africa that, ban at least for 10 years. Let's just try, have a 10 years trial. Ban all the politicians in Africa and their family from having a foreign account, from taking money from Africa and putting into a foreign account. I don't have a problem with them having money in their own country. They don't have many money, big money there, but we're talking about taking this money and putting in a foreign account. I think if countries can start putting this law, put this law that make it, you cannot have a foreign account if you're a politician and your family cannot have a foreign account, even someone related to you. Because we know that sometimes when we pass laws, the people will find a loophole, they can give it to a friend. But we are talking about anytime we discover this money and they trace it back to you, you go to prison. Because what I'm saying that this is important is that a lot of money, especially hard currency, is being taken out from Africa. And anytime you take money away from Africa and put in a foreign bank, that's it. It's not going to return again to Africa. It's gone. And Africa is poor. And if the politicians keep doing this, we see the impact of it in Africa. People are getting more poorer in Africa. What's richer? The gap between the rich and poor in Africa is wide. It's very wide. It's like I don't know. It's like like 200 light years. That's the gap between the rich and the poor people in Africa. And this is because it's not like Africa doesn't have enough money that can sustain them, but what we see that people are taking this money away from Africa and putting it in a foreign bank where it doesn't do anything. It doesn't help the African economy. It doesn't help anyone except the politicians that put this money away. But if they pass a law to ban the stuff like that, we're going to see some changes in Africa. Because sometimes, Africa will think that spending money is bad stuff. It's not. Because if you live in the West, you see the way they spend money. Sometimes you may think that it's not so important that they're spending money. Like you see white people buying flowers. For an African person, it's difficult for somebody from Africa to come to the West and start buying flowers the way they buy it. But when you look at the chain of how these people selling this flower, they have the job. They have a job. They employ people. This is how they look at it, but we don't look at it that way. Even the same thing in Africa. Sometimes we think that people, like if people are doing burial ceremony in Africa and they're spending money in that burials to entertain people, they buy food, stuff, drink. Sometimes people think it's a waste of money, but any money that is spent in Africa is not waste because people are doing business. They're gonna again benefit from it. We see if you don't see things different, or we don't look at the bigger picture, we don't understand. Any money you are spending is gonna end in somebody's pocket and the economy. Because what's happening in Africa is that people don't spend money in that continent. Instead of them to spend it there, those politicians want to come to abroad, to the Western world, America, or Europe, or Dubai, and buy houses there. And there's house agents there. You're creating job for them. You're enriching their pocket. You're not enriching the African pocket there. That's the stuff I'm talking about. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our video. And if you disagree with us, let us know. Peace.